When a man comes back after months of no contact, it does not just happen randomly. It feels sudden and confusing. Like he disappeared into silence, and then one day he returns as if nothing ever happened, and your mind starts asking, why now? What changed? Does he actually care? Or is this just temporary? But here is the truth most people do not understand. Men do not come back in a simple emotional way. They come back because something inside them was triggered. Something unresolved, something unfinished. And if you do not understand these reasons, you will misread his return, and that is where people get hurt the most. Because sometimes his return feels like love, but it is actually confusion, ego, loneliness, or regret disguised as affection. And the most dangerous part is this: the longer the silence was, the more powerful his return feels, because absence creates illusion, it magnifies emotions, rewrites memories, and makes the connection feel deeper than it really was. So when he shows up again, your heart opens before your mind can protect you. And that is exactly why you need to understand what is really happening beneath the surface. Because when a man disappears for months, he was not just busy, he made a choice to live without you. And when he comes back, that choice has changed. But the real question is, why did it change? Reason number one? He came back because the silence did not give him the peace he expected. Most men think distance will clear their mind. They believe walking away will make things easier. Without emotional pressure and without connection, they expect to feel free, but what actually happens is different. At first there is relief. No expectations, no responsibility, no emotional intensity. But slowly an emptiness begins to grow, because what they left behind was not just a person. It was attention, emotional depth, validation, and a connection that is not easy to replace. And the longer the silence continues, the more they realize distractions do not fill that space. They try new conversations, new people, new routines, but nothing feels the same. And this is when the mind starts changing the past. They begin to remember you differently, not the arguments, not the problems, but the comfort, the laughter, the way you made them feel understood. And suddenly, the past starts feeling perfect. So when he comes back, it is not always because he has grown. It is because he could not recreate what he had with you. Reason number two: he came back because his ego was triggered. This is something many people misunderstand. When you also stay silent, when you do not chase, when you do not beg, when you do not try to reconnect, it removes the control he once felt. Many men believe no matter how much time passes, they can come back whenever they want, and you will still be there. But when months go by, and you do not reach out, something changes. He starts wondering if you moved on, if he lost you, why you are not chasing him. And this is where ego turns into curiosity. Curiosity turns into obsession, and obsession brings him back. Not always because he wants something real, but because he wants to know if he still has access to you, if he still matters, if he can still step back into your life. And this is where many people confuse attention with intention. Just because he comes back does not mean he is coming back to stay. Sometimes he is just coming back to see if he still can. And that difference changes everything. Reason number three: he came back because loneliness hit him in a way he did not expect. Loneliness is quiet at first. It does not appear strongly. It shows up in small moments, when there is no one to talk to at night, when everything feels surface level, when there is no emotional depth. And at the beginning, he may ignore it, but over time, it becomes heavier. And that is when he starts thinking about you. But here is the hard truth. Missing you and being ready for you are two completely different things. Loneliness can bring someone back, but it does not mean they have changed. It does not mean they have grown. It only means they feel the absence of what you gave them. And if you do not understand this, you will think his return is proof of love, when in reality, it might just be a response to emptiness. And this is where you have to be careful, because when someone comes back from loneliness, they often leave again once that feeling fades, and if you do not recognize this pattern, you can get stuck in a cycle that repeats again and again. And the most painful part is, each time he leaves, it hurts more. Because each return makes you believe this time will be different. But not every return is a new beginning. Sometimes it is just the continuation of a pattern that was never truly resolved. And that is why understanding the real reason matters more than the return itself. Because his actions brought him back, but only his intentions will decide if he stays. Reason number 4, he came back because he lost something he thought he could easily replace. When he walked away, he believed the connection you gave him was common, that he could find the same understanding, attention, and emotional depth somewhere else. Maybe even better, and for some time, this belief keeps him comfortable. He explores, meets new people, and experiences different connections. But slowly reality starts to hit. Not every connection feels the same. Not everyone understands him the way you did. Not everyone invests emotionally at that level. And this is where comparison begins. He starts comparing others to you. The way you listened, the way you made him feel seen, the way you were present without making things complicated. And the more he compares, the more he realizes what he lost was not easy to replace. This creates regret. But not always the kind of regret that leads to real change. Sometimes it is just regret of losing access to you, not regret of how he treated you. And that difference matters a lot, because someone can miss you and still not be ready to value you properly. Reason number 5. He came back because time changed how he sees the past, but not who he is. Time softens memories, arguments feel less intense. Problems don't seem as big anymore, and what remains is a cleaner version of the relationship. One that highlights the good moments and hides the difficult ones. And in that version, everything feels worth trying again. But understanding the past is not the same as changing behavior. He might believe he understands what went wrong. He might even say the right things. But real growth requires effort and consistency. And not everyone who comes back has done that work. Some people return simply because the past feels easier now, not because they became better. And if you mistake his words for real change, you risk repeating the same cycle. Reason number 6. He came back because your absence finally affected him deeply, when you are no longer there. No more messages, no more support, no more emotional presence. It creates a gap that he can actually feel. At first he might ignore it, distract himself, stay busy. But over time that absence becomes real, and he starts realizing what life feels like without you. This can create strong emotions. He starts missing you, thinking about you, wanting to reconnect, but missing someone and being ready for a healthy relationship are not the same thing. Feelings can bring him back, but they do not guarantee stability. What matters is whether he can act differently this time, whether he can be consistent, accountable, and emotionally present. Without that, even a strong emotional return can lead to the same ending. Reason number 7. He came back because he sensed you were moving on. When you stop chasing, when your focus shifts to your own life, when your energy is no longer centered around him, it creates a powerful reaction. Even if you say nothing, your absence speaks. And suddenly, he feels like he might actually lose you. This creates urgency. The same person who was distant becomes attentive. The same person who took his time now wants to move faster. But the key question is this: is he coming back because he truly values you, or because he does not want to lose control over the connection? Because one comes from genuine intention, and the other comes from fear. And fear can bring someone back, but it does not always keep them there. Because once that fear disappears, people often fall back into their old patterns. And that is why you cannot judge his return only by his presence. You have to understand the reason behind it. Reason number 8, he came back because he finally realized your value. But this realization often comes too late, when you were there consistently. When you were giving your time, your attention, your energy. It felt normal to him. It felt expected, and people often do not value what feels easily available. But once you are gone, once your presence is no longer part of his daily life, that same energy becomes rare. And rarity creates value. He starts to see what he lost. He starts to understand what you are actually giving. But the important question is not whether he realized your value. The real question is, did he realize it deeply enough to change how he shows up? Because realization without action means nothing. Reason number 9, he came back because he is seeking emotional comfort, not commitment. Sometimes a man returns because he knows you are safe. You understand him, you listen. You give him a sense of peace that he cannot easily find elsewhere. And when life becomes overwhelming, when things are not going his way, he returns to the place where he once felt grounded. But comfort is not the same as commitment. Someone can come back to feel better, without any intention of building something real. And if you accept him without clarity, you can end up becoming a temporary emotional support instead of a long-term priority. Reason number 10, he came back because he believes you will accept him again. This is where your past behavior matters. If he knows that no matter what happens, you will always open the door. If he believes that your feelings for him have not changed, then coming back becomes easy for him. There is no risk, no real consequence. And when there is no consequence, there is no strong reason to change. People often treat you based on what they think they can get away with. And if he feels he can leave and return without losing you, he may repeat the same pattern again. And this is where your boundaries become the most important thing. Not what you say, but what you allow. And now here's the truth that most people avoid. His return is not the most important moment. Your response is because his return shows his reasons. But your response defines your standards. If you accept him without clarity, without understanding what has actually changed, you risk reopening a chapter that was never properly closed. But if you take your time, if you observe his actions instead of just listening to his words, if you set clear boundaries and expectations, then his return can reveal whether he is truly different or exactly the same. Because real change is not shown in words, it is shown in consistency, in effort, in how he treats you over time, not just in the moment he comes back. And this is where you take your power back. You stop seeing his return as validation, and you start seeing it as a test, not for him, but for yourself. A test of your self-respect, your growth, and your ability to choose what is right for you. Because not everyone who comes back deserves access to you again. Some people return to repeat the same story, while others return ready to write a new one. And the only way you will know the difference is by not rushing, by not getting carried away by emotions, and by remembering who you became during the time he was gone. Because that version of you is the one that knows your worth, and the one that should decide what happens next. So when he comes back after months of silence, do not just ask why he returned. Ask yourself a more important question. Does he deserve to stay? And if you truly understand that, you will never lose yourself in someone who once walked away. And that is where your real power begins. If this made you see things differently, make sure you subscribe. Because understanding human behavior at this level will change how you see every relationship in your life.